In the bustling heart of New York City, where skyscrapers pierced the sky like arrogant fingers pointing toward unreachable heights, Alexander Harrington stood at the counter of an upscale café, his tailored suit gleaming under the soft glow of pendant lights. He was a man who commanded rooms without uttering a word, a billionaire whose empire spanned tech innovations and real estate fortunes, built on relentless ambition that had long ago eclipsed any whisper of humility. On this crisp autumn afternoon, he had decided to indulge in a simple whim, a lavish spread of pastries and coffees for his entourage of assistants trailing behind him like shadows. As the barista tallied the order, Alexander slid his black credit card across the marble counter with the casual flick of someone for whom money was an infinite resource. But then, the machine beeped, a sharp, unforgiving denial. "Declined," the barista murmured, her eyes widening in disbelief. The café fell silent, the hum of conversations halting as patrons turned to stare at the unthinkable, a titan of industry, humiliated by a piece of plastic that refused to bend to his will. Alexander's face flushed crimson, his world tilting on its axis as laughter rippled through the crowd, and in that moment, the armor of his wealth cracked, exposing the fragile man beneath. If you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, hit that like button right now, drop a comment sharing your own story of unexpected compassion, share this video with someone who needs a reminder of humanity's warmth, and subscribe to Kindness Speaks for more heart-touching tales that restore your faith in the world. Alexander Harrington had not always been this invincible figure. Born into modest means in a small Midwestern town, he had clawed his way to the top through sheer determination, sacrificing relationships and simple joys along the path. His parents, hard-working factory employees, had instilled in him the value of perseverance, but as his bank account swelled, those lessons faded into distant memories. Now, at 52, he lived in a penthouse that overlooked Central Park, surrounded by luxury cars and art collections, yet utterly alone. His wife had left him years ago, tired of being an accessory to his ambition, and his two children, now adults, rarely called, their conversations laced with resentment over missed birthdays and forgotten promises. Alexander filled the void with work, mergers, and acquisitions, convincing himself that success was the ultimate balm for loneliness. That day in the café, he was en route to a high-stakes board meeting, his mind preoccupied with a potential hostile takeover that could add billions to his net worth. The order was extravagant: dozens of artisanal croissants, imported coffees, and delicate macarons, not because he needed them, but because excess was his way of asserting dominance. When the card declined a second time, he fumbled for another, his hands trembling slightly, a vulnerability he hadn't felt since his early days of scraping by on ramen and dreams. The barista apologized profusely, but the damage was done. Whispers spread like wildfire, phones discreetly capturing the scene for social media fodder. Alexander felt the weight of judgment pressing down, a reminder that even kings could fall in an instant. Amid the sea of amused faces and averted eyes, a small figure emerged from the corner of the café, where she had been sitting quietly with a tattered backpack at her feet. Lily Thompson was only 9 years old, her clothes threadbare and her shoes scuffed from endless walks through the city's unforgiving streets. She lived in a cramped apartment in the Bronx with her single mother, who juggled 2 jobs as a cleaner and a waitress to keep food on the table after Lily's father had abandoned them years earlier. Money was a constant specter in their lives, a ghost that haunted every decision, skipping meals to pay rent, mending clothes instead of buying new ones. Lily had learned early on that kindness was her currency, a way to bridge the gaps that poverty widened. That afternoon, she was in the café not as a customer, but because her mother worked a shift nearby and had given her a few dollars for a hot chocolate to stay warm while waiting. She clutched a small, pink piggy bank in her hands, shaped like a smiling pig, which she had been saving for months. Pennies from sidewalks, nickels from returned bottles, all toward a dream of buying her mother a proper winter coat. As the billionaire stood there, frozen in embarrassment, Lily approached the counter with wide, innocent eyes, her voice barely audible over the murmurs. But in this story, words weren't needed, her actions spoke volumes. She placed the piggy bank on the counter and, with a determined nod, signaled to the barista to use its contents to cover the bill. The café gasped collectively, the unthinkable unfolding before them. A child, impoverished and unassuming, stepping in to rescue a man who could buy the entire building if he wished. The barista hesitated, glancing between the flustered billionaire and the resolute girl, but Lily insisted with a gentle push of the piggy bank forward. Inside were perhaps $20 in change, far short of the $100 tab, but it was everything she had. Alexander turned to her, his initial shock giving way to a mix of confusion and irritation. How dare this urchin presume to help him? Yet, as he looked into her eyes, something stirred within him, a flicker of recognition from his own forgotten past. The barista, moved by the gesture, began counting the coins, and miraculously, a few patrons chipped in anonymously, turning Lily's act into a chain reaction of goodwill. The bill was settled, but the true transaction was just beginning. Alexander, his pride wounded but his curiosity piqued, knelt down to Lily's level, asking why she would do such a thing. Though we weave this tale without spoken words, the emotion in her gaze conveyed it all. She had seen pain in his eyes, the same isolation she felt when bullies at school mocked her worn backpack. In that moment, the billionaire's world, built on transactions and power plays, collided with the purity of uncalculated compassion. He waved off his assistants and, for the first time in years, cancelled his meeting, choosing instead to sit with Lily in the cafe's quiet corner, where she shared glimpses of her life through drawings on napkins, stick figures of her mother working late, dreams of a better home. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, casting golden hues through the cafe windows, Alexander found himself unraveling layers of his armored existence. He remembered his own childhood, scavenging for bottles much like Lily did, the sting of rejection when his family's card was declined at the grocery store, forcing them to leave empty-handed. Those memories had fueled his drive to amass wealth, but they had also hardened his heart, turning empathy into a weakness he couldn't afford. Lily's act wasn't just about the money, it was a mirror reflecting his lost humanity. She didn't know who he was, didn't care about his billions or his name in headlines. To her, he was just a person in need, and that simplicity pierced him deeper than any business defeat. As they sat there, the cafe resuming its rhythm around them, Alexander felt a tightness in his chest, emotions long suppressed bubbling to the surface. Tears welled in his eyes, unbidden and unfamiliar, as he contemplated the emptiness of his empire. What good was all that wealth if it isolated him from moments like this? Lily, sensing his turmoil, reached out a small hand to pat his arm, a gesture so pure it shattered the last remnants of his facade. In that touch, the story shifted, the billionaire no longer the protagonist of his own conquests but a man on the cusp of redemption. The days that followed blurred into a whirlwind of transformation for Alexander. Haunted by Lily's kindness, he couldn't shake the image of her piggy bank, its contents spilled out not for gain but for grace. He tracked down her address through discreet inquiries, his resources making the impossible effortless, and arrived at their modest apartment unannounced, his luxury car looking absurdly out of place on the cracked sidewalk. Lily's mother, exhausted from a double shift, opened the door warily, her face etched with the lines of perpetual worry. Alexander didn't come with fanfare or checks. Instead, he brought groceries, toys for Lily, and an offer to listen. Over a simple meal of pasta and canned sauce, he learned of their struggles, medical bills from Lily's asthma treatments, the threat of eviction looming like a storm cloud, the mother's quiet despair at not providing the life her daughter deserved. Alexander saw echoes of his parents in her, the quiet dignity amid hardship, and for the first time, he used his wealth not as a weapon but as a bridge. He paid off their debts anonymously, arranged for better housing, and set up a trust fund for Lily's education, but more importantly, he began visiting regularly, becoming a surrogate grandfather figure in their lives. These visits weren't obligations, they were lifelines for him, pulling him from the abyss of isolation. Yet, challenges persisted, testing the fragility of this newfound bond. Alexander's business world didn't pause for personal epiphanies. Rivals sensed his distraction and launched aggressive maneuvers against his company, stocks plummeting as rumors of his softening spread. Board members questioned his judgment, whispering that the once ruthless tycoon had lost his edge. At home, his children, hearing of his exploits through the grapevine, reached out skeptically, their calls laced with accusations of performative charity. Alexander struggled with these tempests, nights spent pacing his penthouse, doubting if one small act could rewrite a lifetime of choices. Lily, too, faced her own trials. At school, classmates teased her for the rich man's pity, making her question if her kindness had invited unwanted attention. Her mother worried that Alexander's involvement was temporary, a billionaire's whim that could vanish, leaving them more broken than before. But through it all, Lily's unwavering spirit became the anchor. During one particularly stormy evening, as rain lashed against the windows of their new apartment, Alexander confessed his fears, not in words, but in the way he clutched a photo of his estranged family, his shoulders slumped. Lily, with her child's intuition, drew him a picture, a big house with everyone together, a reminder that kindness wasn't a transaction but a seed that grew with patience. Suspense built as Alexander's company teetered on the brink of collapse, a hostile takeover bid gaining traction. He could have reverted to his old ways, cutthroat tactics, firing loyal employees to save costs, but Lily's influence lingered like a gentle whisper. Instead, he pivoted, infusing his business with ethical reforms, fair wages, community investments, partnerships with nonprofits aiding underprivileged children. The move was risky, alienating some investors, but it resonated with others, turning the tide slowly. Media caught wind of his transformation, dubbing it the Billionaire's Awakening, though Alexander shunned the spotlight, crediting a little guardian angel in interviews he couldn't avoid. Meanwhile, Lily blossomed under the stability he provided, her asthma managed with better care, her grades soaring, her drawings evolving from simple sketches to vibrant stories of hope. Their bond deepened through shared experiences, a trip to the zoo where Alexander marveled at her wonder, baking cookies in their kitchen where laughter filled the air for the first time in years. These scenes unfolded cinematically, like frames from a film, the billionaire shedding his suit for casual jeans, the girl teaching him to skip stones in the park, each moment layering emotion upon emotion, building toward a crescendo of healing. As winter gave way to spring, the true depth of change revealed itself in quiet, profound ways. Alexander reconciled with his children, inviting them to meet Lily and her mother, the gathering awkward at first but thawing into genuine connection over shared meals and stories. His daughter, a successful lawyer in her own right, admitted she had always craved his presence over his presence, and in Lily, she saw a chance for their family to start anew. The company stabilized, not just surviving but thriving under a model that prioritized people over profits, proving that compassion could coexist with capitalism. Lily, now with a new piggy bank started afresh, saved not for necessities but for dreams, a art set, perhaps, or donations to help other kids. The unthinkable act that began in a café had rippled outward, touching lives beyond imagination. Patrons inspired to pay it forward, a community fund established in Lily's name, Alexander's empire redefined as a force for good. Yet, the heart of it all remained the unbreakable thread between a once lonely billionaire and a girl who saw a worth beyond wealth. In the end, as cherry blossoms bloomed across the city, symbolizing renewal, Alexander stood on his penthouse balcony, no longer gazing at the skyline with conquest in his eyes but with gratitude. Lily's kindness had not just saved him from embarrassment, it had rescued his soul, reminding him that true riches lay in the connections we forge, the vulnerabilities we share, and the humanity we extend without expectation. The world, with all its chaos and inequality, felt a little less daunting, a testament to how one small gesture could ignite profound change. This story, drawn from the fabric of real possibilities, leaves us pondering our own capacities for compassion, urging us to look beyond appearances and act with open hearts. If this tale has touched your heart, stirred emotions you didn't expect, or reminded you of the beauty in unexpected kindness, please like this video, subscribe to Kindness Speaks, and share it far and wide. Your engagement keeps these stories alive and inspires others to believe in humanity's light. And before we wrap up, drop a comment below with your favorite line from this story. Let's see which moments resonated most and keep the conversation going.